Alright, welcome back guys to part 3. We're going to be looking at the composition of the shot, the trees that we're going to use, the clouds which create our smoke, and the atmosphere. We're going to join them all together into one. These are the final things, that is, and I was going to originally split them up, but I don't really see a point. So it'll be a little bit longer than originally intended. So settle in and let's get started. We're going to crack on straight into the atmosphere editor, and I'll show you exactly what I've done. And well, to be honest, I've loaded one of my presets that I really like, and I've just modified that for this specific scene. So here's our settings. I always use global radiosity for still images. There's no point in going lower for me. The radiosity gain, that's going to increase the reflected color of light. Sorry, the amount of reflected of color reflected light. The clouds, we haven't touched anything. The sky, fog and haze, for all those who know exactly what they're doing. There's your settings. Just to quickly explain it, the sky ground density I've reduced to get a darker coloured sky, if I can get here. So that there, if you reduce the sky ground density, this colour in the background will get a little bit darker, and without affecting the plants too much, if at all, really. The mean altitude, again, sort of ties in with the two. And if you crank that right up, you'll get some pretty interesting results. I'll just show you exactly what it does. Okay, so I've done some 3 renders. One which is our original, just with the volcano in there, and you can see the lighting style happening on the slope here, as well as the quality of all the colors in the sky. And then what I did was at the settings I had before, I cranked the sky mean altitude, and this is what we had. So it sorry, I think I've actually got that back to front. But if I drag that down, it'll get brighter. So I did get that back to front, but you'll see in just a moment. The sky mean altitude basically indicates how thick your atmosphere is. So in this sense, it gets a lot darker as we reduce that mean altitude, which means that you go up, say 937 meters in this case, and you should be in space. That's one way of explaining it, except that it's a mean altitude. So that means that you should have to go about double that to be in blackness. So, and this is just another setting that I did as just by tweaking those two there. So the two settings, the sky ground, the sky density, and the decay amount will actually affect each other. If I just cancel that and go back in to reset the settings to what they were. Your decay amount just adds the orange which you get at a sunrise or sunset rather, more so at a sunset. So the amount is how strong is this color, and the decay altitude is at what point does it start or finish. So you usually want that to be a lot less than your sky altitude. There's no point in me explaining these colors more than what they are. The sky is blue, the decay color is orange. You can use a lot brighter blue, but it really just depends on what effect you're getting, and it does tend to be extremely sensitive though. You can touch it left and it can look totally different, or touch it right and in color, in hue, and you get a very different result. As for the haze and fog, what I've aimed to get is this sort of fog along the base here, you can see. And in actual fact, it's probably not coming up high enough and dense enough for long enough to achieve what I was trying to achieve. Because if you look down here, we've got a little area through here that I was trying to get a bit of mist, and there is a tiny bit through there, but that's what the density is. So you can pump these way past 100%, and if I take that to 1000, and let's say instead of 52, let's go to 70 meters, and we're just going to render this bottom section here. And what this is going to do is create a nice thick fog layer at the base. And I tend to prefer doing these in multiple passes, so I have one render where I have the fog, one where I don't, and then I can mix them in Photoshop, and that gets you a better result, I find, because you can pick and choose where you want the fog to be. So there it is there. We don't have our foreground trees yet, so you can't really see where it's being applied to, but if you just take notice of that ridge there, and this one coming down to the right, we flick back to our other one, so that's that ridge, and this one coming down to the right. So that fog is coming up nicely through here, so that's probably about the right height. It's probably a little bit too strong though, for my liking. Now the haze is a similar setting, but applies to a lot higher, and tends to, I'll show you an example of this. Let's go 300%. Let's render that. Now I tend to use a very dark haze, and that's because of Dax Pandy's training that he does, and he one of the things he said was that you might as well use a darker haze and use a lower percentage than using a lighter haze and using 300%. So here I don't need 300%. You can see what it's done. It's made it look like, well, makes it actually look like we're in the ash cloud, and blocks out all the light that we had going. So I think it was on 57 or 60%. And the altitude, again, just indicates how high up it goes or how low it stops. The glow intensity and scattering anisotropy, that, actually if I, so here's the normal glow intensity and scattering anisotropy. And what the glow intensity will do is it will affect especially this ground fog. If I remove that and click render, it's essentially multiplying the light through any particles which are in the atmosphere. That's the way to visualize it. And there you can see. So without any glow, you're going to get a much crisper look to your image, and that's something that you would find typically in higher altitudes where there isn't as much contaminants in the air, like dust and even water. Once the water drops out of the air, you get a lot crisper images, and that's why as you go up in altitude they tend to be like that. So it's, I think that was at 800, and the scattering anisotropy is how close or how far does the sun's light get pulled towards the camera, or get pulled around the atmosphere. So if I really crank this down and do a render, this is going to be, I suspect, very blown out. Okay, so that's what that did. Yeah, quite blown out. Let's crank that right back and do another render and see if we can actually get a proper result now. So the reason that's happened is because I'm using a glow intensity of 800. So you can tweak the two. Again, a lot of these things will tie into each other, and you can see here how you've got this nice glow coming around from the sun, indicating exactly where the sun is. And that's what we had before, that's what we have now, and it just creates a nicer or a nice glare over the camera. Okay, so the cloud anisotropy we don't use because we don't have any clouds in there. Also, this slider will not affect any meta blob clouds that you have. It'll only affect clouds that are in this layer. So just keep that in mind, so that you're not trying to tweak that and get a different result. The aerial perspective, this just increases the depth, guys. It's pretty simple. Crank it up and it will make your scene look like it's further away. Turn it down and it makes it look like it's closer. In fact, if you're doing matte paintings where you're applying the atmosphere later, crank it right down to 0.1, which I think is the minimum, and do your renders, and that's the way that I do it for my work. So there you can see we've got a lot more of the atmosphere in between the camera and this mountain. And actually, looking at that now, I can see that there's a few things wrong with my atmosphere. The sky color and gradient is too bright, even though of course we're adding more atmosphere in there. It's going to get brighter, but it's too bright and too colorful. But the main thing is this color of the skylight coming down. It's not the sort of color that I want for this particular shot. So that's just something that it comes with time, and this is where you come in to change the overall skylight color. We'll just exit that so I don't save the changes. I'll come back in, and what we'll do is I'll delete these. So this is our original, this is what our atmosphere looks like. And if I come into here and I'll set this to a less saturated blue. Now when I cranked that aerial perspective, it actually changed the overall skylighting saturation. So the two are tied in, but it's just a matter of working backwards and forwards. Okay, so we don't have much of an effect here because we don't have much color in at this aerial perspective anyway. But if I flick between those two, I'm not sure if it'll show up after compression, but there is a bit of a change in the lighting here. And of course this is only a preview, so a lot of that flicker is actually the calculation of the GI, which is being done again, and it's not accurate enough to make it the same each time. But anyway, that's that. If you want to pick it apart, you can save out the atmosphere from this file, and we're going to just quickly go over the composition of this shot and show you how I did it. Now I've used onyx trees, 3D trees, which I've built up a library of custom ones that I've made over the years for different clients, and I've used a couple of their standard ones which ship with the program, and I've just dumped on a couple of custom Vue materials which I've made over the years as well. So as for the immediate foreground elements that we see, you'll have to, I'll be leaving you to your own devices, these trees through here. There are heaps of the trees inside our tree library, which are, a lot of them are okay, the HD larch and HD lime trees, which can be fine. I just prefer to take a different tree species here and there, so that it doesn't look like I'm only using Vue all the time. So aside from those trees, which sadly I can't supply you with those because of the onyx tree terms of use, but I can show you how I've done the composition and the ecosystems for for the shot. So top down, we've got our volcano here, that nice big square, and I've dropped down another terrain, and on this terrain I've just literally right clicked, copy material, select our second terrain, which I've positioned here as you can see it, and I'll even flick on foreground grass, so that there's our grass in the red, and there's the middle trees which we see further into the distance. Let's just delete all these to go back to something we can actually use. Right, so down here we can see these are the middle trees, this is the foreground grass, and our composition tree elements around the edges. So if I show you the material, it turns out I've actually changed this since then, but the base material is just the grass, which I've just loaded up grass and then changed it into dead grass. Then I've loaded up another layer, which is just your standard grass. I've added in a bump production because I want bumps to be seen down there. And for the alpha, I've added in another grainy style fractal and just tweaked it a little bit. If I just show you that. So it's just grainy fractal, a couple of different, just randomize the features, and I've created this alpha production, and that just creates a little bit of dirt and grass mixed amongst itself, so you don't even see it, to be honest. You see there's a nice green splotch here. This probably needs to be a little bit more green, but it does the job. The pine trees, exactly the same as before, just using a bulky conifer, and then the leafless ones, and we just tweak the scale if we need to, and turns out I don't think I did for this shot, because I've got the scale right, and if you get the scale right as you move forward, you can see there's the other trees, and these trees are just pretty much the exact right size for it. So we've got a nice unified scale there. And then the foreground grass. I've also got foreground trees which are surrounding this camera, and you can see them now here in our shot. They're on the left and right, and these are not actually seen by the camera because I've decided that I want the high def trees from Onyx. But what they do add is the shadows, so, and that can be a really good benefit. If I turn them on, and I'll turn everything else on, and I'll show you exactly what these trees are doing. Okay, so here we've got our grass, which is casting a couple of shadows. It's not as many as I would normally intend, but because we've got this nice hill through here, it's actually casting a soft shadow just based on the geometry. I'm not actually using any soft shadow settings, I don't think. Okay, 0.5, which is hardly noticeable. And soft shadows on the sun will slow down your renders big time. So that's why I generally try and do it with geometry. And you can see a nice big shadow there. You can see this shadow here, just in the corner, is being cast from the trees to the left. So yeah, so what I've done there is show you how to get this gap through here, because I've used a population, and I've just gone pines, and what I've done, I've loaded in a snow. I don't know why it was snow in particular, but I've turned up the global transparency to 100%. Because what I've actually got here, if I switch to my secondary camera, just select that, and we'll zoom in. So this is our foreground grass here, which you can see there's over here is where our primary camera is, and it's looking, and that's what it sees. So what I've done is I've actually duplicated this terrain, and that's what the foreground trees are on. So you can see them here, they're in exactly the same terrain, a nice steep side. I've made huge variations to their height. Because we don't see them, I only want to see the shadows. So a difference in their height is not going to matter too much. Let's turn them on, and you can see that they're following the shape of this hillside, and that's because I've just duplicated it. I've moved it down just a tad, and then added this basic layer with a full transparency, so that if we just rendered that, all we would see is trees. And the way that we get this this gap through here, it's pretty simple. We've got another, I believe it's maybe not that layer, here it is. So have a look at this. You can see there we've got a cone and a cylinder. Now the cylinder is sitting literally on top of the main camera. If I turn it on, you can't see anything because over here the camera's inside it. So the cylinder is saying what these are. Seasoned Vue guys will know these are what we call eco blockers, and just group them, put them in there, and what they allow us to do is inside our ecosystem for these trees, we've got in density, we've got decay near foreign objects, and you tweak these settings to get the trees to whatever proximity you require. So what I found was, without that cylinder there, I had a tree that was populating literally on top of my my camera, so I didn't want that, and I put the cylinder in there. The cone is a great tool for blocking out things from within the camera's field of view, and out if you're blocking things from appearing outside the camera's field of view because you don't want to use, say, dynamic ecosystems. Then you want to be looking at cubes. They're probably the most effective. So I'll just resize this this prism so that it is sitting. Select it, sitting there. I've just stretched it up so it's going through, cutting through the terrain, and it's inside the field of view. Then we just toggle them off, populate the terrain, and we're done. Okay, so the last thing we want to do, we're going to look at is the clouds. Now these clouds, we have to do some Photoshop work on them. I'm sure there's a way. There must be a way to create make these clouds look a lot darker. If you figure it out, please send me an email, because I'd love to know how to make clouds actually look like dark smoke rather than light puffy things like this, which isn't too bad, but anyone who's seasoned looking at 3D art, they'll know that this is a cloud. It looks like a cloud. So the way we create these is with our meta clouds. So I'm just going to select them and show you exactly what they are. All I've done is click load material, and my machine's not going to want to do that. There we go, it's just starting up one of my hard drives. And I'm going to go to up to clouds, open that out, and we want to look at the meta cloud materials, and I can't remember if it was soft with variations, I believe, that I loaded in, and it's right there, and then we edited that, so I can check with the name. There it is, soft with variations, and I've tweaked the scale. Now the scale and a lot of these settings will be up to your particular size of meta blob, so just keep tweaking it. The key settings here for different sizes is the cover and the scaling, the roughness, variations, and uniformity, but mostly the cover and scaling. Scaling is probably more so than cover. In fact, definitely more so. And then obviously your main scale up in the top right here. those two are major for different sized meta clouds. So my particular group here is 1 kilometer, so these are enormous meta clouds. So if I just grab our secondary camera and let's just let's come over, so let's look the other way, so I'm not rendering something I don't need. We'll come over to the left here, we can right click and let's find something that's at least we can find the rough cloud, that'll do. And we've got our template here. What I'm going to do is select local rotation, let's rotate it up, and all I've done is just rearranged the innards of this cloud group. So to do that, just expand it and move these spheres around however you like. So there's our basic shape. It looks like smoke coming out of a chimney, really. And let's see what this looks like at default. Just go only selected objects, select that, and we'll click render. Except we've got our section render, so we want to cancel that. That's going to give us the wrong effect. Turn that off, press render, and a little bit too far away, I think, and too low down, so let's move in a bit, have a better look at it. Now of course these will be a little bit higher than the camera. We want to be looking at the sky when we're looking at them, not at our horizon. Okay, so these are actually looking pretty good, but they're using a specific material. We can go in, load material, click on soft with the variations, click on render, let's try that again, and it looks pretty similar, except just a little bit less dense and all over the place. So let's go in, edit our material. I want a bigger scale, although these might have to be sized up a bit. We want a lot of density. Now I'm just guessing these settings here. I haven't actually referred back to the old ones, but the density will influence the amount of cloud. I believe it is the amount of cloud. But you can see what's happened here in the top right. It's become a lot more black. But opacity will do a similar effect. The opacity is sort of like the amount of light which is allowed to pierce through each particle. So you can have a really dense cloud which has a lot of light passing through it, and that's similar to what I've just created here. So it's pretty good, but when I look at this here, we want more details inside our cloud. So I also want it to be a sharper. Sorry, not a sharper, probably less sharp. Sharpness will, if you set it down to 2% or so, it makes it look fantastic, but it will take ages to render. So just keep that in mind. Even at 0.5%, it even gets even longer. So let's try the opposite here, and you can see the obvious effect. So that's from sharpness almost 2% or so, that's to a much higher sharpness. So we'll leave that as is for now. We want a lot more feathers though, and probably at the moment we've got they're too filled out. So if we reduce the cover just a little bit, and let's just reduce this density because it's way too bright. Just looking at my top right image there. Now the scaling is as I mentioned, what makes an enormous difference, and you can see what's happening as I'm changing it around. If I crank that to 0, pretty much fills the entire cloud with the fractal. So the fractal in this case is so small that it's not able to actually change anything very much. So I'm going to go back to my other material, the other clouds that is, if I can find them, and we'll look at the settings now that we've looked at them in the other situation. So we've got a cover of 100%, 600% density, so that's making it really, really dense, lots and lots of particles as you would get in a smoke cloud. But we've got a 20% opacity, and that isn't so realistic, because really you would get a smoke cloud, the particles of ash will block a lot of light. So I've just copied this these settings across to our new cloud group, and we'll see what we get from that. So actually facing away from the sun, we're getting a much nicer appearance of smoke, whereas if we flick around to the other side, a little bit of backlighting, we get a much lighter sense of the cloud. So we go from that to that. So this looks much nicer. It looks more realistic, which is good, but it looks more like a cloud. So if we crank the opacity up a bit, and I think that's actually looking quite good. Yeah, so see, this is what the opacity will do. It just makes it flattens out the image a lot, and this is why I've left the clouds at a much nicer, lighter gradient, because in Photoshop we can then dim it down, and we can still keep that gradient, and which is catching the light rather than just losing all the details in the darkness here. So if I was to continue with this, I'd probably fill out a lot more, even just come in and find another meta cloud group, and let's see if I can just find one and throw it in with it. So let's say that we're going to scale this down, keep it similar scale to our other group of meta clouds, which I'm just lining up here. So there it is. We'll stretch them up. Might actually just rotate, and let's duplicate to the top as well, or top and side. And we'll just go and copy our material, paste it in there, and see what happens. Sometimes because there's so many more here, we'll have to tweak the effect again, but I think we're going to find this is too much. There we go, let's try this. Okay, so that's most of the way towards getting the effect that we want. And if I was to keep working on this, which I don't want to waste time because it's a lot of guess and check, you'd want just try and getting these smaller details, which you can go in to the fractal itself. If I am allowed to right click on this, which Vue doesn't want to, I need to right click on here. So the color and density, come to here. We could change this from a Perlin gradient to say, we could even change it to just delete it. Let's add a basic repeater. This way we can maybe not a basic repeater, simple fractal will do. So we want something with a smallest feature that we can control. So if we crank this largest feature down and move the roughness up, Now just bear in mind this may not look good at all. So it may look absolutely horrible. You can see here that the general look of the cloud is not dictated by the fractal. It's only the details within that are being controlled. So you've got to keep tweaking the values inside here. Maybe it's the scaling and roughness to get the smaller details will probably do the trick for us. So just for the last one, as we're almost up to 40 minutes, so we're going to tie this off. So there you go. You can see there's a lot more of these smaller details on the left here as I've increased the roughness. And now the cloud's looking a lot denser and probably too light and too dense. So I'd go in and increase the opacity and decrease the density, but not to 100% after 600, maybe down to about 400 or 300. So yeah, that's about it. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. You should have my email in the magazine. Otherwise, go to my website, which is extremeprojects.com.au, and there's a contact form on there. And I'll make sure that I get back to you. I'm always at my machine. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope it's been good, and hope it's been helpful and not too long. So have a good one.